Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to pick up on what I thought was a bit of rambling from Boris Johnson yesterday when he couldn't answer some of Starmer's questions in Parliament, but it turns out his actual government policy to cost us £100 billion for something for which there is no delivery plan. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, when I looked through the main newspaper headlines this morning, the right-wing papers were predictably full of the rule of six. This is as a panic reaction to the exponentially increasing number of COVID cases on the way to our second wave. The government have decreed that we may not have gatherings of over 6 people now, unless there's economic activity going on. Now, most of the media are outraged by this, wailing and gnashing of teeth from the bulk of the right-wing papers about draconian measures and Christmas is cancelled. In reality, the new rules don't actually change anything for anyone who isn't completely insane, because you're still allowed to go to the pub. Even that is insane. Restaurants, schools, colleges, your office, all of these things can still happen. In fact, pretty much the only thing the rule rules out is holding a dinner party at home and probably protesting in the streets. It is potentially the latter of those examples that the government are seeking to prevent, but it's the former that the writers at the Telegraph, the Times and the Mail are probably most bothered about. But at the Express, oh, the good old Daily Express, the paper that backs Boris Johnson to the hilt through any form of insanity, these are the ones I was saying recently, you know, the peak of the crisis when everyone was gunning for Johnson, saying you're making an arse of this. They were the ones going, no, don't worry, we're going to have our vaccinations out by September. They've gone quiet on that now. No, they now had a message of hope for us all this morning. Johnson's COVID moonshot plan. Now, I'm an astrophysicist in terms of my university degree, and I thought I knew what a moonshot was. It seems not. Apparently it has nothing to do with catapulting Boris Johnson into space and is instead a term used by business bullshitters to hide their ignorance behind buzzwords. So in this context, apparently it refers to a plan that is on the outer edge of possibility. The plan, which is called Operation Moonshot, according to a leaked document seen by The Guardian, is for the testing of 10 million people a day in the UK. Now, Boris Johnson was sort of talking about this in a press conference last night. And according to the reports, this is supposed to be happening by the end of this year. Now, to put this into context, the United States at the moment says that it has carried out about 90 million tests altogether throughout this crisis, which has been going on for over half a year. They have carried out a sum total of 90 million tests. Now, we reckon, apparently, that we can match the sum total of the entire American testing to date in a 9-day period. And we can get ourselves up to this point in time to save Christmas. For those people that think that the essential feature of Christmas is cramming yourselves into a room with more than 5 others in the middle of a biblical plague. Now, this proposal for testing 10 million a day, according to the leaked government document, is intended to avoid a second national lockdown. That's not speculation, that is what this government document says. Now, that's interesting. I found that really interesting, because what it means is that if this plan fails, and this plan, remember, is on the outer edge of possibility, the government expects to have to impose another full national lockdown. That's what this suggests. In fact, more than suggests. It's quite clear. And like I said, you know, if you look at all the fuss that the right-wing press have made over this rule of 6, which actually basically only rules out their dinner parties, doesn't actually change anything for anybody who's already adopting sensible measures. Anyone, I'm going to argue, anyone that has been sensible isn't affected by this new rule at all. I am not affected by this new rule at all. Imagine what would happen, though, if we go into another national lockdown. They'll have a fit. Do you know what this Operation Moonshot sounds like to me? It sounds like Boris Johnson is being told in no uncertain terms, we are headed for a second wave. It's coming. That's all there is to it. It's not possible, not probable. It's now on its way. I think he's also been told that it will likely be worse than the first. That it will also be coinciding with the winter flu as well. He's also been told, no doubt, because we've been told this is a matter of public knowledge, the NHS is already exhausted from the first wave. The extent to which I cannot overemphasise that NHS staff really, it was all hands to the pump. They've exhausted themselves after that first wave. They're knackered, on their arse. Staff are on the edge. We also know this. There is a high risk of many leaving the service. Imagine this exhausted workforce who doesn't feel that it's getting the support from government that it should be, that knows that it's covering basically for massive holes in the service because of government abuse over the last 10 years, and getting ready for not only winter flu, not only the massive pressures that come with every winter these days, but also a second wave that's even bigger than the first. We're going to need another lockdown, Prime Minister. I'm quite sure that is what he's been told. It's unavoidable. We're going to need to do this. So you can imagine it from Boris Johnson's point of view now. A national lockdown is politically unacceptable for Johnson. Finish him off. Completely finish him off. The right-wing press do not want any measures at all. They don't care about the virus. They do not care. Don't give a crap. Many of his own backbenchers, many of his own MPs, again, do not care. They do not want these measures in place. So Boris Johnson knows another national lockdown is political suicide for him. So he's asked Dominic Cummings to get one of his weirdos, one of the ones who hasn't been sacked yet, to come up with a plan. And one of those stoners will have said, well, if we test everyone in the country every week, then we should be able to manage it without a lockdown. I mean, it's asymptomatic people who are the main issues, because if you've got symptoms, you isolate and wait for you've got a test. It's the ones who don't know they're infectious that's the problem, you know, when it comes to spreading the virus. So if we just test everyone every single week, we'll be able to deal with it. Brilliant! You're worth your money. Absolutely. Oh, yeah, don't worry. That would work. That's not a ridiculous idea in as far as I can tell, because that is the issue, isn't it? Asymptomatic carriers. Absolutely. And if you could test everyone routinely every week, yeah, that'll work. But the problem with this is, it's not like someone's gone to the Prime Minister and gone, hey, I've got a great plan for testing everyone in the country. Oh, and that would solve all these problems. You know, this isn't based on, there's no plan to deliver this Herculean feat. This has come about because it is literally the only thing that can avoid the need for another national lockdown. Johnson is so desperate to avoid that lockdown that he will throw his support behind anything at all that can avoid it, that can help. Even if it means a budget of £100 billion, which is the figure being quoted. And just out in context, like our typical annual budget at the moment is something like, was it last year, something like £850 billion? This is and bear in mind what we've already been spending. We're already on course for, what is it, 300 billion extra borrowing this year, and we're now talking about another 100 billion for something for which nobody has any idea how to do it. You know, consider this, like our testing system can't even manage the much smaller number of tests that's already been carried out. Starmer talks yesterday in Parliament about government figures, official government figures, saying that there's an average of 75,000, sorry, I kept doing that, 75,000 tests each day not being used. And yet we've got people all over the country being told that there are no tests available for them. That means there's 75,000 tests every single day that are sat on shelves somewhere that they're not in the right place. They're not where they're needed. And we've got no system of getting them to where they're needed. If the private companies in charge of this system cannot manage the logistics of their current capacity, how on earth is it supposed to deliver 10 million tests a day? Testing the equivalent of the entire population each week. Also, how do you even manage to get 10 million tests a day? How do you get the laboratory capacity to test 10 million a day? Is that even possible? Even for a competent government, is that even possible? Boris Johnson, when he was talking about his plan last night, said we would. Now, I want to bear in mind here, normally when Boris Johnson announces a plan, it's all very positive because you know how he is. You just have to believe and it will happen. Everything's positive. Oh yeah, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. When you ask him how, don't worry, it's all sorted. That wasn't what he was saying last night. Last night he said we would need the technology to carry this out. That means it doesn't exist yet. So we need to invent new technology for a system to be rolled out in about 3 months' time, because it's got to happen before Christmas, remember. He also said that we'd need to source the necessary materials for the test. Well, that's what I mean. How do you get 10 million tests a day? Absolutely. You know, we are going to need to source those materials, but can we? Is it possible? You know, but what he's saying is, when you think about what he's saying, he's indicating that we have no clear idea yet as to how this can even be done. You know, there are so many ifs and buts about it. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for aiming high, absolutely. But this seems to be gambling everything on a fantasy. Just because Boris Johnson cannot possibly countenance another full lockdown, and because he's asked everything up to the point where that is what we're facing. Why doesn't he just get the basics right? I mean, this sounds to me like someone deciding to start learning the piano, and rather than working on their scales, they go straight into trying to master Stravinsky. Because it has to be said that there are things that comparable nations have been managing that we have not. They've been managing things better than us, and they're suffering. Are we seriously going to believe that somehow, against all of the background of failure, all of it, Boris Johnson is actually going to get this seemingly impossible challenge delivered within a few months? This thing that is supposed to be optimistically considered on the outer edge of possibility, hence this term moonshot, which probably more realistically means not actually possible at all, just another £100 billion finding its way into the pockets of private investors. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hopefully you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.